So we have started. Now I'm going to click live on our other platforms. We're good. Go live. All right. Today on the Dane's Desk show, we will be discussing conflict resolution skills for life. This is going to be a special report, which means I had to bring in a special guest by the name of Ted Santos, a very brilliant individual that I couldn't see myself having this discussion with anyone other than him. So, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, get your pens and pads out and get ready to learn something new. So on that note, we're gonna dive right on in. Thanks for joining us today, Ted. How's everything going?
Hey, thanks for having me. My pleasure to be here. And yeah, everything's going well. In the old days, I would say I'm groovy.
Groovy. You are you do say that one a lot. So again, I appreciate you for coming on today. And conflict resolution is a topic that I'm realizing is an area of growth for most people. And I felt that it was time to have that discussion. And so, as I shared off camera, what ultimately inspired this is you had shared an interview or you had posted an interview, and you were talking about the impact that divorce has on workplace productivity. And then one of the resolves that you introduced was if people just had better conflict resolution skills, then it would most likely reduce, nor it can, and it would reduce the divorce rate, which means that it would minimize what the ultimate goal of reducing the workplace productivity impact divorce has. And
Right,
so I
right.
was like, you know what, it's definitely a topic that I've been wanting to learn a little bit more about, gain more expertise about, uh, from for both personal and professional life. And so I was like, you know what? Now's the time to make that happen. So let's go ahead and dive on into that. So
Absolutely.
conflict resolution, Ted. So briefly, feel free to just share kind of like how you stumbled upon, that data and those statistics, and
Sure.
how it led to us being right here today.
Okay, great. So uh, I think most people intuitively understand that going through a divorce can be a distraction for them, mental distraction at work and other aspects of life. And there's an organization called Life Innovation. And Life Innovation, I guess they pulled out the CPAs and finance guys. They pulled out a bunch of people and they sat down and put pen to paper and did a rough estimate. And what they found was that uh, when someone is going through a divorce, their workplace performance drops by 50 to 75%. Is their productivity drops. And what that's costing corporate America annually is $300 billion every year
Mm.
because people are less productive at work because they are thinking about a divorce they're headed for, a divorce they're in the middle of, or one they just came out of. So, and if you have children and if you have to go to court and all those other things, it just takes away your productivity at work. So imagine a large corporation and you have people in the middle of divorce just coming out of one or headed for one. That could be a lot of people who are distracted and
Mhm.
not working very hard. So that's a huge problem, and people have often commented to me and said, "Why are you so concerned about divorce?" I said, "Because I think we're just overlooking. It's we're pretending it's not happening, and it's a big issue." And if you look at divorce in general, if you look at over the decades, what has happened is the more people get divorced, the more people divorce because people tend to think, well, everyone else is divorcing. That's a solution. If we don't
Mm.
know how to resolve things in the relationship, we'll just get a divorce. I mean, I even have a cousin. I remember his first marriage. He said, well, if it doesn't work, I'll just get a divorce. So more and more people think that way. And then you have children being raised in broken homes, and
Mhm.
that creates some level of trauma for them. And now they are like gun shy. They're afraid to go into marriage because they think one possible outcome is divorce. It's just
Mhm.
normal. Everyone around me has gotten a divorce. Um, so, when people can understand that when you're distracted by going through an event that is taxing on you mentally,
Mhm.
because most people don't go into a marriage intending to get a divorce. I'm sure there are some people who are. Those are your outlier liars. Maybe they were marrying for green paper, you know, a green card or something like that. That or business, some arrangement. But most people intend to stay in their marriage. Uh, it's mentally taxing, and then you have children, and you get this vengeance. I want to get back at you. You hurt me, especially if there's infidelity, where you deceived me. I thought you were going to make,
Right.
give me the life of luxury, and I would never have to work, and I hate this. Lots of reasons, and people use children as a weapon. uh that's just a lot of conflict, and you will carry it to the workplace, and it doesn't just go away. So people are not like bananas, where they put on a peeling to go home and then unzip
Right.
it when they go to work, and they're a different
Exactly.
person. Like, whatever's in your head is in your head, and whatever triggers you at home will trigger you at work. The difference is, at work you're taught business etiquette and professionalism. No one is taught relationship etiquette and professionalism. So anything goes at home. So, and just as a quick, when we're talking about the workplace, they did a survey a few years ago, and they asked executives, if there was one skill you thought you could be better at, what would it be? And the number one was conflict resolution.
Mm.
So it's yes, it's important in a marriage, it's important with your friends and family, but it's also important at work. There are many people that deal with conflicts in the workplace, and they don't always know how to resolve them. Like I said, if you're triggered, if the same thing happens at work that happens at home happens at work, you're still going to be triggered, and suppressing it is not conflict resolution, because what people
Mhm.
generally do is find a way to get back at you.
Revenge. Right.
Yeah, there's this, now you have this undercurrent, right? So divorce is something that can distract you from work, but you also can be distracted by that, I'm gonna get back at you because I don't like what you did to me in the workplace. So I'm going to withhold some information about a project. I'm gonna make sure you look bad, all these things that people do because they don't know how to resolve conflict.
Interesting. Now you touched on a lot, but one of the things I wanted to come back to is you talked about the connection between, again, person, then also relationship with self. Now we have relationship with other, and now we have obviously our personal relationship. But then now we have professional relationship, and how something that's happening on our personal and within ourselves can spill over into the workplace.
Right, right.
And to your point, you said we kind of overlook this component of conflict resolution or divorce, and the impact it has just both on personal and professional lives. And that makes me want to ask now the question: do you think people's immediate decision to want to think divorce is a solution comes from them not knowing what the actual conflict resolution skills are from a practical perspective?
Yes. So I would say so many people do not have problems in their relationship, whether it's marriage or cohabitation or dating. Uh, Usually it's just some misunderstanding.
Hmm.
And so what happens is one misunderstanding combines with a second misunderstanding and a third, and it starts building this snowball that grows out of control. And they have no way of resolving it. All they know is there are a lot of things wrong here.
Hmm. So speaking about that snowball, I was doing some reading, and I read that one of the things that snowball represents is resentment.
Right.
because it's, to your point, like you said, it's not necessarily that we have problems or direct conflicts per se. It's typically just misunderstandings and or miscommunications
Right.
or uncommunicated expectations, as I've also learned. And
Absolutely.
so I'm also noticing that we avoid these things not necessarily because well, a lot of the reason because we don't have the skill, but also too is because we want to avoid the fear of being honest with each other about how our relationship is going and whether or not this could be the end of the road for us because we aren't in alignment or we aren't working out. So when it comes to those specific skills, like, what would you say some of those, like, I guess, top 3 skills, conflict resolution are, and then we can kinda, like, start diving into those?
Well, I'm thinking how deep do I want to take this because maybe I think I need to start at the base of it
Yes, please
before
do.
going too far out. So
Please do.
um, a lot of people think conflict resolution is about knowing the right thing to say or do in the face of a conflict. And that can. And I can actually give a real example of a conflict of a situation that could have escalated out of control. So I'm in New York City going to work and I am walking down 8th Avenue morning rush hour, and 8th Avenue is pretty busy. There are lots of people at rush hour, and I'm walking, there's a guy to my right, and I'm probably going to pass him, but somehow I just went off balance, and while he's walking, um, my foot landed right between his that's how close I came on him. Like, I didn't
Wow.
touch him, but I was so close that my foot, because it was like I was drunk or something, and I promise you I wasn't, but so when he saw how close I was, he's like, "What are you doing, man? What are you doing?" He's very angry with me, and I can't tell you what he was thinking, but I just know he was angry. Could have thought maybe I was trying to rob him, pick his pocket. Who knows? This is New York City. So I knew it was an accident,
Mhm.
and I stuck my hand out and said, "My name is Ted Santos. How are you, man?" And what it did is it disrupted
Right.
the way he was expecting this to go, that it was going to be confrontational. And he shook my hand and said his name. And then for the next 2 blocks, we walked together. And then I went left. He kept going straight. And he said, "When you stuck your hand out, I shook it because I thought, this guy can't be bad. If he's willing to tell me his name and shake my hand, this guy must be all right." So we talked, we laughed. So that was something that could have escalated, right?
Mhm.
Possibly even turned into a fight. And um, instead of me feeling like I had to defend myself, or if on his side there was something wrong, and I can see why. I was way too close to this guy. In the U.S. we have personal space, and this guy, he was Puerto Rican, and even in the Latino culture, their idea of personal space is a lot closer than the average person in the U.S. But this was way too close. So if I had, and this is where I'm going to get to the essence. So, in answering your question, when you get really down to the essence of conflict resolution, in that situation, I did and said something that resolved it, but it wasn't that I knew the right thing to say, because I never did that in the
Mhm.
past. I didn't
Mhm.
have that as a plan. It wasn't a script that I had. I was able to do it because I didn't find myself being in conflict with the guy. I had no conflict with him. I understand what happened, and he had a conflict. So, if you look at the essence of conflict resolution, the reason you end up with two people butting heads is that the essence of it is, when you encounter a person or a situation, you'll be in conflict with yourself when things are happening in a way that you didn't expect or something you don't like. And once you go into conflict with yourself, you immediately project that conflict onto the person or situation. And so, on his part, that's what happened. He saw something was wrong, and that puts him in conflict with himself. I don't want to be taken advantage of, or whatever the conversations he's
Right,
having with his
right,
head.
right, right, right.
And for me, because I knew there was no conflict, I resolved it instead of trying to figure out the conflict and rationalize and all that. I didn't have a conflict. All I knew was to way to resolve this was to be a human being to this guy and
Right.
reach out to him and connect with him. And that now we could talk and, you know, now we're going to be best buddies for life. I may have actually walked next to him again and never knew it, but
Right.
for that moment, we were able to walk, laugh, joke, and, you know, and go on with our lives without that conflict following us for the rest of the day.
Mhm.
So, um, if you don't if you haven't worked out how to manage the conflicts you have with yourself, there are going to be things in life that trigger those conflicts, and you will immediately go into uh, having to defend yourself, and you're going to be in conflict.
So let me make sure I understand that point because I think you said something very important there, Ted. You said that at the end of the day, the conflict isn't necessarily in the event that happens per se.
Right,
So in your case, you getting close to this gentleman, stepping in between his legs, that wasn't the conflict, the event per se.
right,
The conflict was the gentleman's perception of
right.
what was happening
Correct, correct.
because he it triggered him to go back into something in his experience where he, like you said, where he felt is he trying to mug me? Is he trying to take advantage of me?
Right,
And
right,
that created some tension in him, which made him express himself initially the way he expressed himself.
right. I'm going to defend myself. There's no way you're going to take advantage of me. I'm,
Hmm.
you know, I'm I'm a city boy. You
Yeah.
don't mess with me. And
Right.
that's what happens, and that's why when we talk about divorce and there's a misunderstanding, that's often what happens. It's like I said something and now you are, I know what you're trying to do. And you hear
Hmm.
people say this, I know what you mean when you say that.
Right. Right. Now that's actually good. So going back to one of the things I saw, it said that active listening sounds like what you kind of it did right there. It was is says paying close attention to the other person's perspective and concerns, ensuring understanding before responding. So it sounds like that's kind of what happened in this case here. You know, you took the time to actively listen, but not necessarily with your ears, but also to with your eyes, observing your surrounding, you know, observing through your own perception how he was perceiving the situation, which led to some level of clear communication from you, which was to put your hand out there and introduce yourself as Ted Santos and ask him what's his name.
Yeah, I would say more. So I have a commitment in life, right? So um and in that moment, my commitment was not necessarily to befriend him,
Hmm.
but my commitment was to make the conflict go away and have a human connection. That's
Okay.
why I stuck my hand out. So his hand could connect to my hand. And now we, as two men, can talk. I had no idea how it would work.
Right.
He could have slapped my hand away, you know, and he could have.
Hmm.
But you could say who I was being, my intent, he would have gotten authenticity from me.
Right.
That I authentically, I'm Ted Santos. Like you know, people say the olive leaf. I'm extending the olive leaf. You know, this is a gesture of peace, like
Hmm.
real peace.
Okay. That's actually a good point because it kind of made me think about this next topic that I want to discuss in regards to getting back to the essence of conflict resolution beginning within ourselves at the end of the day.
Right.
So us having well, I guess, I mean, we've somewhat discussed this this concept of healing. uh but there is some part of the human being that we always have to be conscious of, and I know we've talked about that word as
Go
well.
go ahead. We're talking to the public, the general
Yeah,
public, so I understand.
but it's just like we have to understand that like conflict resolution, it begins with us. It isn't
Right.
the person that we're dealing with or the people or the organization that we're dealing with.
Right.
And so with that being said, when we now go back into specifically, divorce, more so intimate relationships between individuals, it's it seems like it'd be a hard rock to push up a hill to tell someone that the source of their conflict is them in a relationship, when I'm pretty sure from their perspective it's the event that's the source of the conflict, or the other person.
It's what
So
you said.
it's what you said. So how would someone, begin to wrap their head around this idea that conflict resolution begins within,
So
specifically in regards to when it comes to obviously relationships with others?
so if you think about it, um, I'll start with business. So in business, you get companies that buy other companies. They merge,
Hmm.
mergers and acquisitions. So I'm
Yeah.
buying your company, and now your company is being folded into ours. And now we are one organization. Well, we bought you, and the way we do things is the way we do things.
Yeah.
And you guys don't do things the way we do things. We do them the right way.
Right. We've
That's why
talked
we're
about that
buying you
too.
guys, right?
Hmm.
um, or we do it a better way.
Right.
You guys may do some things that are good, and that's part of the reason we bought you. You have some good stuff, but as a culture, or we're merging as equal companies, right? But the way our culture works is better than the way your culture works, and people can be offended by that.
Hmm.
It's like our company has done well. We've been around for a long time. That's why you guys wanted us. We're not failing. It's just we make one another stronger. So that's kind of how people deal with one another in intimate relationships. In my
Yes.
family, we did it like this. In your family, I don't know. You guys are retards, man. I don't know how you guys survived all this time. So imagine you may not, some people may say that to their spouse. You guys were retards, man. I don't know how you guys survived. So I'm telling you, you're wrong. Something's wrong with you in your whole family. And so that can put a person in conflict with themselves.
Hmm.
And now I have to defend myself, or I'm going to get you back. I can't wait to find something your family did and I can say, "Oh, you guys are the real retards. Look at what you're doing." And so
Mm.
you're now your relationship is surviving on conflict like that.
Yeah.
Who can make the other one more wrong so that
Hmm.
I can be more right, and we need to do things the way my family did it.
That makes perfect sense, Ted. And when you said it, broke it down like that, it made me kind of just think like, wait a minute. The bricks or the snowball, that first initial flake of resentment is that's where it begins. Like something as
Right.
simple as the one person nonchalantly just saying like, oh, we did it this way, and the way your people did it was retarded.
Right.
That seems like it can begin is the beginning of the conflict. That now we just taking this into the relationship, so that down the line, months, weeks, years down the line, to your point, then that's when we think that this event that happens, oh, like we bump this bumping of heads, like this is our conflict, when the reality is like, nah, this conflict has been brewing for the entirety of our relationship.
Well, so there's an inverse side. Now imagine if you're with someone and you see the way they did things their family did it so well that you actually feel like the retard.
Right.
So so
Exactly.
now you've got to level the playing field. When I was 24, I was dating a woman who was 29, she was 30. And one day she said, and this is after we're seeing one another for 3 months. She said, "Just because I haven't found something effed up about you already doesn't mean it doesn't exist, and I'm going to find it." And I didn't even know people were doing that and really like I didn't know people were looking for stuff like that. I thought we were having a good time together, and
Right.
now I just learned that you have to find something wrong with me. So what could the implication be? Imagine if you're seeing someone and you think the way you or your family did things was wrong, and you're dating someone and you can't find anything wrong with them.
Mm. Now you might start inventing something that's
You
wrong
you
with them.
could, but how could you see yourself?
Yeah.
How would that person end up seeing themselves?
As a loser on
Y
some level.
Something's wrong with me, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong
Not
with you.
worthy, unworthy.
Exactly, and eventually you're going to leave me.
Right. So let me, to your point, so now let me get ahead of the game and do something to get at you first, or lead the attack so that I don't, at least whatever happens, I got my lick in.
Absolutely, that would happen, but if I could find something wrong with you, you can't leave me because you're just as screwed up as I am. We're
Ah,
both the
yes.
same, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um, or I'm going to antagonize you, hoping that you go into conflict and want to fight over it, argue over it, so I can say, "Look how screwed up you are. You're not so perfect after all. Look at you."
That's actually really good right there. So there can be instances, I would say, where people in this case are within conflict with self,
Right,
whether it's how and that we'll just keep with the same example. Like, I mean, I know, I'm effed up, because of the way my family operates.
right, right,
Damn, every guy or girl I'm call myself trying to deal with, their family, I perceive their family to have done it the quote unquote right way.
right,
So that can't be true though, because in my experience, quote unquote, like there's always something wrong. So I need to this person has something wrong with them. So it seems like now the relationship is just some scavenger hunt of the person trying to find something wrong with the person. So it's not like they're necessarily there, to your point, because I've had a similar experience with a young lady in my past where it was pretty much, she didn't use those exact words, but that was pretty much her words. And I was just kind of like, to your point, like I thought that we were having a good time here, but you're
right,
the whole time you're sitting up here trying to find something wrong with me.
right, right,
So it's like we're in two different relations, or even though we're physically together,
right.
we're experiencing two different realities right now.
Exactly. Right. We're living in 2 different worlds together.
Yes, two different, right. We're living, and it's like that's what I see a lot. That's what I saw personally in my relationships, intimate relationships, but also too nowadays. I see that a lot with people, and I've seen that throughout my whole life. To your point, it's like, to your point, people are together, but they're living two separate lifestyles, or living in two different realities, two different dimensions,
Yeah,
and they're just trying to figure out a way to quote unquote make it work,
right.
but it always seems to inevitably fail, because at the end of the day, again, that their fear to be honest with each other, because of unresolved personal issues, it just leads to like what they perceive to be conflict, but it's in reality is just unresolved,
Right.
personal issues.
So if we go back to the woman I was seeing, um, the way she would end up in conflict with herself is she was already listening to this voice in her head that says, "I'm screwed up.
Hmm.
Everyone's effed up. We all have issues." Now she's seeing someone and she can't find anything. So if you already know something's wrong with you, you accept that. But when you meet someone and you can't find something wrong, it's reinforcing how messed up you are. So
Right.
now you're in conflict with yourself. So she was never in conflict. I wasn't in conflict with her. And her conflict wasn't with me, it was with her and how she sees herself. And
Hmm.
eh, yeah, so I'll just say that. So that's why I say the conflict resolution has nothing to do with the other person or the situation. It's she was in conflict with herself and now projecting that conflict on to me.
Right.
And so she didn't want to resolve the conflict, which only existed with her. She wanted to create a new conflict
Hmm.
so she could sort of alleviate herself of the sort of pressure of I'm so screwed up. But if she could find something messed up about me, then she could say, well, at least we're the same. We're
Right.
both we're
Exactly.
two screwed up people. I already knew I was screwed up. Now I know he's screwed up, so we'll be screwed up together,
Hmm.
and we'll try and make it work in our screwed up relationship.
So with that being said, how can people with with knowing this now, how can people begin to, I guess, do the work, the personal work to make sure that they aren't allowing their own unresolved issues to spill over into their personal relationships? Like that's the first question. But then also too, the opposite of that, the person who isn't in conflict, like how can they now interact or engage with individuals who are in contact so that they're so that the it will specific event doesn't escalate, but also too so that they ultimately can move forward, because that's the ultimate resolve there. They're still, life has to be lived and they have to be able to move forward.
Right. So the extremely short answer is self mastery.
Yes, exactly.
So uh, mm, I'm thinking, how do I want? I'm thinking two ways. I'm also thinking about chaos. I want to put that on the table. Um, but he who masters self masters the world,
Hmm.
masters life, I should say. He who masters self masters life. So mastering life is going to put you face to face with situations that you may call chaos or disruption or a problem. So he who masters chaos really masters self. It's not about ever mastering chaos, it's about mastering self. So whether it's your relationship that has conflict or it's life presenting chaos, something's happening, and how you label that happening will be dictated based on the level of mastery you have of self. So with zero self mastery, when chaos happens, the first thing you want to do is get rid of it. I want to get this out of my face, get rid of it. Or conflict happens in a relationship, you want to get rid of it. And one way people get rid of, or let's say two ways. One is to kind of ignore it and go away, sweep it under the rug until it becomes unbearable. And the other one is to just immediately fight it, to defend
Hmm.
yourself. So, but with self mastery, something's occurring and you're more likely to get present to your commitment. So if there's zero self mastery, you're present to chaos and
Right.
something being wrong. And people don't like having problems and chaos because chaos presents way too much uncertainty, and we are not educated to navigate and through uncertainty. We want to get to the right answer. So in school, we get is the answer A, B, C, or D, and we give the right answer, and we are rewarded. We
Hmm.
get the doggy biscuit, and we get for giving the right answer, and that's the way we live our lives. So with self mastery, you're going to be more powerful in the face of the uncertainty that you're facing. So um, I say in relationships, when both people have self mastery, they are more likely to talk through and, even laugh and say, "Oh, that was just a misunderstanding. I understand your family did it this way, my family did it that way." Um, Neither of us is obligated to do it the way our family did. Actually, we could this is our family. We can
Right.
create our own way to do it that has nothing to do with our families. And it's not making either family wrong. It's just our commitment to what we want to create as a couple and the family that we are building together.
Hmm. That makes perfect sense, and falls right in line with what I was getting at. Now, the second part of that though is, what does it look like when the relationship is composed of a one person who has self mastery and the other doesn't? Like, how do they go about moving forward through the conflict?
So um, you're going to move forward by going through the conflict.
Mm,
You're going to go through it with the other person. So it's going to require a I'm going to say a bigger commitment with a person with no self mastery than it would be with someone who has self mastery. So the person who doesn't have self mastery, you're going to have conversations with them that they may not like at first because they haven't had them, or they're going to say, "You're just trying to trick me," or
gaslight, right?
you're gaslighting me. This is a Jedi mind trick. This sounds good on paper, but you're trying to get away with something. I know what you're doing. So
Right.
you're going to go through that until they start to see, "Oh wow, okay, I'm starting to understand what you're saying." And part of it is, you can't make anyone think or feel anything.
Right.
You can't get into someone's brain and say, the Wizard of Oz, ignore the man behind the curtain. You can't be behind the curtain pushing, physically, literally pushing the buttons. So a great example is, attractive woman walking down the street, and a guy says good morning. She's angry because what she's saying to herself, all this guy wants to do is have sex with me. And now
Hmm.
she's angry with you, and all you said was good morning. And this literally happens.
Yes.
Good morning. Hi. Hey, I know what you want. Good morning. That's it. So um he didn't make her angry. She did that to
Right.
herself. She told herself the way the world looks to her, if it's a guy I don't want and he says good morning, I have to push him away. I have to back him off of me.
Right.
And so um and maybe this is I can't be in every woman's head, but maybe the conflict for some women is they don't believe they have anything else to offer except sex. So now you're her thinking that all you want, she's in conflict because I'm trying to hide. Maybe I went to school and I have a degree, so I can say I have value because I have a degree. But
Man.
really, really, what's your value in a relationship? Like your degree in economics or sociology or whatever it is, what does that have to do with creating a great relationship?
Exactly.
So do you I so I want people to think I'm not all over the place. So if you don't have the skills to be in a relationship, you may know it, but you try to hide it by looking really pretty and, lots of makeup, and my hair is right and I have a degree, but technically in a relationship, I don't know what I'm doing. So if I think you just want sex, it's almost like you pierced my bubble, my facade of I'm good for a relationship because I have a degree and I look good. But
Right.
to
Right.
make a
Right.
relationship work, that none of that is relevant to making a relationship work for day to day, especially in a marriage and raising children. I mean,
Hmm.
yes, I like that you have a degree, you're educated, and we can talk about some things, but okay, now what?
Mm.
So what that could leave, that could put a person in conflict because I think that I don't have anything to offer and you just want sex with me, which then confirms that I don't have anything to offer and you see what I see in myself. So a lot of people spend their life hiding and some people call it imposter syndrome, right? People get promotions at work or, they present themselves as being so attractive, but they may not actually see themselves that way. And the second you even imply that you don't see them as valuable, it's like you discovered the thing that they've spent their life hiding. And
Mhm.
now I'm in conflict with myself. And of course, I'm going to be in conflict with you because you're the one who exposed me for the thing
Right.
I've been hiding. It's like, uh, i- there's something called the Dunning Kruger effect where
Yes.
people, there's two sides to it. People who actually have high intelligence underestimate themselves, and normally because they're usually saying things that the public, no one else, very few people are saying. So they sound ridiculous. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
that's just dumb. There was a guy,
They're radical.
right?
Mhm.
Louis Pasteur, back in the mid 1800s, told medical doctors who delivered babies that they should wash their hands, and they were like, "You're an idiot, man.
Right.
Like, there's nothing wrong with our hands. Look at my hands." So, well, he said there's little tiny microscopic germs that you can't see that are when you're delivering a baby, it's infecting the woman with those germs. And they were like, "Oh, so little things I can't see are killing women. Ha ha ha. Go away." Um, so we people with Dunning Kruger, they say things that people think are just ridiculous.
Mhm.
But then the people who are just average or above average, not high, but just above average, those people often think they are geniuses.
Right.
They overestimate themselves. So the people who really have a high intelligence underestimate themselves because people laugh at them for saying things that sound ridiculous. That Louis Pasteur was right. Wash your hands, and that mitigated passing germs to women.
Yep.
And the people who are just average, well, everyone else believes the earth is the center of the universe. Dummy. So it is. I'm intelligent. I know it's the center. So when people really are, and I listen, there's nothing wrong with being average. I mean, we're all average at something, and then we are brilliant at something else. So um, not everyone runs as fast as Usain Bolt. No one feels offended by that.
Mhm.
You should be able to run as fast as Usain Bolt, and you don't. So some people run fast, and some people think fast, and they think in a way that categorize them as being world class, like an Olympic sprinter, world class thinkers. Einstein, we're all okay with Einstein being more intelligent than most. So, but the problem is we fight for so much equality, and behind the scenes, what people are often saying to themselves is they know they are not that world class. They know they are not that person who has an enormous amount of value to offer in a relationship. So when you say anything that sounds like you're criticizing, and you may not, you may just have asked a question. Why do you
Mhm.
do things this way?
Mhm.
I don't have to explain myself to you. Well, I don't understand. um, People get offended. They're in conflict, and it makes it more difficult for them to actually talk things through. So, in the example of why do you do things that way, this can turn into an argument when it never had to be. It
Yes.
was it was a misunderstanding, and so that becomes one flake in the snowball, and then you say, "Well, no, I don't want to do it that way." That becomes another flake in
Mhm.
the snowball, uh, and because they are in conflict, they are less likely to talk through, or they're sort of blinded by the conflict that even when you're saying and telling the person, reasoning with them, they don't hear it because they're in so much conflict that they want to get rid of it or find a way to get they think they have to get back at you, and now
Right.
your marriage is downhill now, and you don't even see it, but it's like the one person or both are plotting to get back at one another, and you no longer have a relationship.
It's crazy you say that way because that was leads us into the next part about relationships, and that was this idea of the gender war. Because
Mm,
us having this discussion now has made me realize, to your point, that both men and women, we are saying that there is a gender war, but the reality is it's a personal war, that we just have unresolved issues that we aren't willing to, quote unquote, um because again, it's not that we fix things or that we remove things, or like, but it's just we aren't willing to reach a level of self mastery at the end of the day. How about we say that? And so I know it's going to be hard for a person looking at this to say, like, oh, what do you mean I'm the source of all my conflicts in life? It's like you said, it's not me. That person disrespected me when they said that my family was retarded. Like, how can you say that I was the reason for this conflict? So what would you say is a way to walk a person through that? Because I agree with everything you're saying, because I've been doing the work, quote unquote. So
right.
how does a person process that idea that all of their conflicts, they are the source of all of their conflicts?
Yes. So there's a bit of a challenge here. So when we look at the U.S., self mastery is not really part of the U.S. culture.
Yes.
Uh, but what seems to be part of our culture is what I was saying earlier: is having answers.
Hmm.
And self mastery is not about having answers. It's being able to discover, right? So what does it take to discover? A guy like Nikola Tesla probably asked millions of questions to create the kind of inventions that he did. I mean, the guy was talking cell phones in the 1800s. So uh, self discovery is important, and self mastery allows people to discover things about themselves that they didn't know. And
Hmm.
that helps you uncover blind spots and mental barriers that you either accepted as this is just the way it is and normal, um, or you didn't have the tools to do that kind of discovery. So the tools that we have allow people to see what they see. And that's why we are where we are with a divorce rate over 50%. So if
Yeah.
if the ABC car company was selling cars and 53% of their cars were uh, were faulty and would fall apart,
Right.
who would buy them? If you know that only 47% of people would have a car that functions, and it doesn't mean like, so 40% of the marriages that stay intact doesn't mean they're good marriages.
Right.
So, but if you know that 53% of the time, 53 out of 100 people that buy a car from the ABC company, you know it's going to fall apart. It's going to fail. Who's going to buy that? And that's what we have in marriage. And people know that. So whatever tools the ABC company used to make those cars, 100% of their cars,
Right.
it's not working. So whatever tools we're using in our marriages, it's not working. And that is the one thing that's a level of honesty people need to have. Instead of saying, "Well, I know a couple that their marriage is working just fine." Okay, I'm not taking that away from them, and let's say the 20% of married couples that are just fine. That leaves 80% that's not just fine.
Right.
And half of that 80% they get divorced. So or more than half. Um So there's a level of honesty. So we don't have self mastery built into our culture. If we did, then what I would be able to say to people is you this is a you kind of have no problems in life. You really don't. I mean, men have done a great job of making life safe and convenient. You know, people are not walking down the street. When I go to New York, I've never seen a lion just walking down Times Square. So
Unless you're
we
watching I Am Legend.
right, right, exactly. But that was Grand Central Station, but down the road from. So we've done a good job of making life safe. And when a rainstorm happens, you have shelters. You can go inside and be safe. You know, there are some. We even become better at building buildings that are can withstand earthquakes.
Right.
So we really don't have problems. So with self-mastery, I can say to people that the problem only exists in your head. So something happened and you made up a story about what happened. So it's like there's the reality of what happened. So we go back to the woman walking down the street. The man says good morning. That's what happened. A
Right.
man says good morning.
Right.
The story she made up about his good morning is, "I know what he means, and he just wants to have sex with me."
Hmm.
That never happened, yet she's responding as though it happened. With self-mastery, you become more powerful in dealing with life and what happens without the story attached to it.
Mm.
And so I guess here's where I say I invited you and a few other guys, to engage me in training for self mastery, and that what I just talked about, that's one of the things that we discussed. And so
Yes.
you and a few other guys have been engaged in self mastery, and I'm going to assert that you guys see a difference. You see some distinctions in how in the tools that you once had and the tools that you're now working with to navigate through life and people, uncertainty, conflict, chaos. Um, so I'm really putting in a hard plug that self mastery needs to become part of our education system. It needs to become part of our culture as a nation. I mean,
Yes.
what maybe places like China, India, maybe some other Asian countries have more of a handle around this notion of needing self mastery. But in the U.S., we talk about having game. So I got game. As long as I got game, I know the right thing to say. And um, yeah, that could get you into a woman's pants having game. But how does that how does that support you in creating a great relationship? And I just I have a difficult time seeing how having game and just having good lines here and there that creates a great relationship.
Mm. Man, that's actually an excellent point, Ted, because you using the analogy in a sense of like, tools, it made me realize personally, I don't remember being given tools to
Okay.
have quality relationships, both, platonic and non-platonic. And it was like, to your point, over just through living life, I created stories about these things that I thought were the tools that
Right.
I need to be using, but because I didn't know how to use the tool, then I didn't know. Because again, I had if I can't use a Phillips head screwdriver to
Right.
unscrew a flathead,
Correct. Right.
Now, if I put enough effort and energy into it, I'm pretty sure I can figure out a way. But the outcome of that space is going to be jacked up looking. It's going to be real
Right.
scarred, as they
Right.
would say. As opposed to if I just had the proper tool, then I will be able to not only get the job done, but maintain the aesthetics of the area that I'm working in.
Right.
And so when you said that, that really landed home to me, and it made me realize, to your point, like we don't have the tools to have quality relationships with others, both
Right.
platonic and non-platonic in most cases. And well, I would say correct me if I'm wrong, but I will say that it appears that men do typically kind of have some of these skills only because we kind of are, socialized and conditioned to be able to move forward in life through our own, problems. Because again, we're told things like you got to man up, or
Right.
that's not how a man does it. And so we kind of get over that. It seems that we are able to develop that trait, I guess I can say. But overall, for I see it a lot in youth, that lack of tools, to
Mm,
where again we're seeing kids now resorting to lethal force
right.
to resolve their conflicts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wouldn't say it's has anything to do with today. It's been there.
Oh
So,
yeah, it's definitely been there. But the point of we don't have the tools to figure the tools to again resolve our own issues so that we don't project them out into others.
yeah, I don't want to take us off track, but perhaps part of the problem is if we look at what the US was founded on. I mean, that takes us in a whole different direction. That
That is
was
true as well.
that it was founded on conflict and war. So,
Hmm.
that's
Literal treason.
right, right. So we were founded on that's the culture. So, I see this in
Wow,
corporations.
treason is our culture.
When you look at a corporation, what was there from the founder kind of stays there as part of the culture. It's just passed on to each generation, even if it's a
That's a good point.
100-year-old country. So, I mean, 100-year-old company. So we have a country that was founded on, theft and murder, genocide. Uh, there is no conflict resolution.
Hmm.
So that's how we were able to get things done. And we say it's the greatest country in the world, but what it was founded on, we never took that out.
Yeah,
So we have more violence than many other countries.
that makes perfect sense when stated that way. And so that makes a lot of sense. Hopefully, those watching, it makes sense to them. But all in all, conflict resolution, self mastery is the resolve. That's what it seems like I'm hearing, Ted, that it a lot of our quote unquote problems or conflicts can be alleviated with us making a commitment to self mastery.
Oh, absolutely. And as I was saying, it's so. Well, I won't say as I was saying. Uh, we're educated to stay in conflict. So just
Right.
think when you're a child and someone says something, some adult says, "Why'd you let him say that to you? Why'd you let him do that to you?" When he said that, you know what he means. Like, so we are encouraged to be in conflict and to be angry about things. And 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 so how do you get out of that? Because you're a child and adults are saying, so not only adults saying that to you, you're watching adults do it, whether it's your parents or hell, teachers in school. You watch teachers get upset with students. You see all of these things happening. And so by default, it's what we are given for how to manage. We're no one ever sits us down and says, "Okay, we're now going to work on self mastery. We are going to work on all the stories that you make up in your head, so that you can see, kind of put on a screen and see none of those things were real.
Right.
You made all of those things up in your head. All the times you were worried because you were worried about something that wasn't happening at that moment. It didn't happen in the past, and it wasn't going to happen in the future, yet you were responding as though it was. And
Hmm.
how we justify it and say, "Well, it could have happened."
Right. Right. That's actually a good point because we deal with that on a daily basis just in these digital streets. But all in all, this has been very productive, Ted, because it has allowed me to realize that, to your point, that we've been in conflict. Our culture is conflict at the end of the day. It's ingrained into us. We teach
Right.
it. we educated. That's to your point. It's conflict is part of that always already listening, conversation that's been the fabric of this country since its founding.
Right.
And so until individuals begin the commitment to self-mastery, then we will continue to perpetuate this perception of us being in constant conflict, or us
Look,
perceiving that people are in conflict with us because we haven't done the self-mastery work to understand that
right.
we're just responding to stories we've made up in our head.
Right. And in addition, we make music that perpetuates conflict. So we get rewarded. Not only is it there are stories in our head, we're actually rewarded for fostering an environment of conflict. I'm the toughest. I'm the baddest.
That makes perfect sense. So to bring it back home, conflict resolution, skills for life, that skill in the sense is self-mastery. That's that tool, that tool is self-mastery, and we just have to develop the skill of being able to use that tool of self-mastery.
Right, mastering self. He who masters self masters chaos. You master life. So chaos is not chaos. It's just something happening. The story you make up about chaos is what throws you into conflict.
There it is right there. Perfectly said. Perfectly said. All
Thank you.
right, said. So on that note, we'll end it because I like that was to my mind the best explanation of everything we just discussed. So before I let you go, let's first let people know. Feel free to let people know a little bit about yourself. What you do and where they can find you.
Sure, sure. So if you and I were in an elevator and I had just 30 seconds to tell you
Yeah,
what I
what's your
do,
elevator pitch? Right
I'm in the business of producing miracles.
there, it is.
CEOs and others hire me when they're looking to create a breakthrough and they're not sure how to do it with their existing resources. So I work with them, and this is not just CEOs, but I work with them to create disruptive strategies that allow them to uh, penetrate some untapped market or do things that they never thought they could do, including creating disruptive technology. And then there's this whole training to transform corporate culture so the culture has mastery to navigate the breakthrough project that most likely is going to bring a lot of uncertainty and chaos, which is not a problem. But that's going through that is really, you know, going through the breakdown and the chaos coming out on the other side with the breakthrough is really a big part of life, and people miss out on that. People can find me on LinkedIn as Ted Santos, or you can find my website, which is turnaroundip.com. And IP is like intellectual property.
Okay. Now that's turned around, not turn around.
Turn around. Maybe I had that Jersey accent in there a little bit there. You know how we do up in Jersey.
Yes,
Turn
sir. Yes,
around
sir.
IP.
Perfect, perfect. All right, Ted. Well, again, it was a pleasure as always. I appreciate the time. I appreciate you giving us a tool that we can develop some mastery, or the tool of self mastery that we can now use to develop our skill in that, so that we can resolve our own personal issues, so that we don't allow ourselves to be put in conflict by the stories that we create
Yes.
about things that are happening in our life on a day-to-day basis with the people and environment that we have to deal with.
Yes. And we don't have to deal with anything, but you know,
Well, yes.
it's always great when you can navigate and walk with people. People say, I want my peace. Well, the peace starts with you, and no
There it
one can
is.
no one can ever take it away from you.
Okay, so there, on that note, we'll end it there. The peace starts with you, ladies and gentlemen. So if you have any questions, you need help turning yourself around, CEOs, or somebody, go talk to Ted. He'll make it happen for you.
Thanks for
Pleasure,
having me,
Ted.
man.
You make it a great day, and like I said, we will be in touch.
You
And
got
I
it.
look
Thanks
forward
for
to doing another one of these in the not so distant future with you.
perfect, man. Thanks. My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Enjoyed the conversation, and I'll be talking to you soon.
Yes, sir.
Take
Peace.
care. All right. Bye.